Hi, this is Dr. Scott Young, and today we're going to do that series that we've been working on. What if I don't believe in NESARA? This is a two-parter, and the first one says Trump hasn't said it, the three-letter agencies. Coming right up. So my wife and I were driving around this morning, early in the morning, and we were thinking about this series, or at least I was talking about it a little bit more. And one part about this is we were saying, what kinds of things would help people understand this better. Now, someone said, well, you just haven't given all the evidence of it. And the answer is there is no way to give 100% evidence of something that is in the middle of happening. Like, let me give you an example. If you want me to give you the evidence that a team is going to win the Super Bowl, but they haven't done it yet, we haven't even started the playoffs, how do you know? It's called faith. How do you know that you're going to win an election on real elections? It's called faith. How do you know that what you're doing in your business is really the right kind of thing that will attract the patient or the customer database that you're looking to see in your office? It's called faith. And if you don't have any faith, that's okay. But don't expect everything just to hit you between the eyeballs and make it make sense of every single little thing and make it completely 1000% clear, because there's nothing like that. Because when you have to investigate something that is going on, or you don't have every tiny piece of evidence out there because someone's trying to knock it down, for instance, Ruby Ridge, or pick the topic, it gets a little frustrating for people. But you have to push through it. Push through it and keep on researching. So again, we're going to talk about the three-letter agencies here. I've said to you over and over again, don't ask me about opening up a QFS account. There is no way to open up a QFS account. Those are fakers and scammers. The count is already set for you. You'll learn about the right time to do it. Okay? All right, so let's get into this a little bit. So this one, we're going to show you this a couple times through the series, is Executive Order 13818. And I call it the bankruptcy abuse one. This is just a way that I'm going to call this particular one. But what it talks about is blocking the property of persons involved in serious human rights abuse and corruption. Okay, so this was done in 12/20/17. So think about that for a half a sec. Trump gets elected in November of 2016. He takes over in office in January 20th of 2017. And so this puppy is not even, 11 months in, and he, excuse me, he's shooting, he's firing across the bow of the Cabal a very, very heavy cannon. And he's already done several little things, and he's pissed them all off. They were terrified of him when he was coming to office, but when he was in office for 11 months, he shoots this one across the bow. And so let me kind of tell you a couple things. So human rights abuses and corruptions undermine the values that form an essential foundation of stable, secure, functioning societies, have devastating impact on individuals, weaken democratic institutions, degrade the rule of law, perpetrate violent conflicts, facilitate activities of dangerous people, and undermine economic markets. Now, pause for half a second. He just basically said elections, violent conflicts, degrade rule of law, activities with dangerous people. I mean, that weaken the democratic institutions. Now we have a republic, but there are portions of what we're voting in, and impact on individuals and societies, and stable and secure. I mean, holy cow, that is encompassing EO if I've ever heard one. Most EOs never go this deep But it's targeted. Don't get me wrong. It's targeted at a group of people who are doing all this stuff, and they're doing it from within the systems of government. And the United States seeks to impose tangible, significant consequences on those who commit the serious human rights abuses or engage in corruption, as well as to protect the financial systems of the USA from abuse. Now, I'm going to pull this off the screen for a second because I want you to pay attention to me. What it's saying here is committing the serious human abuse and engage in corruption that protect the financial systems. If you didn't catch that point right there, you're missing how he's talking about money. He's talking about the money. I'm going after you, and I'm not going to just put you in jail like every other criminal is done. For instance, criminals go to jail and they get these ridiculous fines. I mean, some guy is a drug dealer and has harmed a whole bunch of people in the community, and he gets like a $30,000 fine. And you go, wait a second, the guy has like millions and millions of dollars. How is 30,000 bucks a big deal? It's like these fines were created in ridiculousness era. And yet when it comes to someone who has an IRS taxation, I mean, they're going to go after you with hundreds of thousands of dollars of fines. And you're going, this doesn't even match. So we look at that and we don't even kind of look at it and say, how about a percentage of your income if you were going after that one? Even none of this stuff makes any sense. And I'm not pontificating a response, a way to do it. But what he's saying is like, if you're involved with this stuff and you're destroying our whole society, you get nothing, buddy, and you like it. You're also going to jail because that's what he's telling you too. So let's move that one forward just a hair. And it says it blocks the property and interest of the property of the sanctioned person that are in the United States, and that such property interest in the property may not be transferred, paid, exported, withdrawn, otherwise dealt with. And this is what people kind of, when they read it, they go, I'm lost already. Basically what we're going is like, you don't get to touch all of your property and your interest in your property. Now, what you're missing when you hear that is like, you think of a piece of land that someone owns, right? Or they have a house over here or a house over there. And the answer is that's not what it means when you say property. When you're blocking a property, you're taking away the ability to access anything that is his or hers. And it says the interest in property, which means if you have the Clinton Foundation, you can't use the Clinton Foundation to get in there and access that piece of property. And it says you can't go and transfer, pay, export, withdraw, otherwise deal with. I mean, any other way. He's going, you are done. This is so binding. It's so difficult for most people when they see these kinds of executive orders and they look at the writing. They're kind of clear, but then they're kind of not. And if you're not used to them, they'll mess you up with this. Okay. Now here's another one. I have never actually talked about this particular one coming up. It's 13849. So that's just a few little bits down. Now 13848 is actually talking about elections. But this one I found interesting, and I was kind of playing around with this just this morning. So I call it countering adversaries. Okay. So, obviously I didn't, I'm not saying something you wouldn't know in that way. Executive order authorizing the implementation of certain sanctions set forth in the Countering of Americans' Adversaries through Sanctions Act. So this would be 9/20 of 18. Now, at the relative same time frame that 13848, that is crimes against the election, are happening, this kind of comes in and no one pays any attention to. So what this actually is saying is it prohibits any financial institution from making loans or providing credits to the sanctioned person, totaling more than $10 million dollars in any 12-month period of time. See, and you're going, why is it $10 million dollars? It's saying we know who the big players are. That's basically saying a big player. Okay? Unless the person is engaged in activities to relieve human suffering and loans are provided for such activities, or loans or credits are provided for such activities. So he goes, oh, wait a second. If you're doing something wonderful for humanity, we're okay with you. Wow. Guess what? There's going to be some amazing loans and credits for activities for humanity issues. That's some cool stuff that it kind of intimates in here. And again, this is way before we ever talked about NESARA stuff. So, and it does the same exact wording as in the other one. Block the properties, the interest of a property and the sanctioned person that are in the US or that are outside. In essence, you don't get any part of that thing. So because you have international agencies, and I want you to think about one tiny thing, Ukraine. I said it, didn't I? When Biden said, and he actually said, I'm not going to let you have this $1 billion, and he was talking to an oligarch and the Ukraine. I'm not going to let you have that $1 billion unless you do this particular thing I want you to do. He's on camera doing it. That is telling you Joe Biden, okay? And so it crosses over some of your matrix levels, and you're getting messed up when you're looking at that stuff. But you have to understand, you have to show the world the crazy that they're doing, and you have to get all of them. That's why we're delayed in getting, and delayed for our sakes, and what should be happening. Okay, so let me show you this one. Now we're going to talk more specifically about the three-letter agency. That's just the setup of what Trump talks about. So I'm going to make sure I turn this up. You need to turn up your volume just as much as you can here, okay? And I'll play this here. He just did this. This is in June. Today is June 23rd, okay? So and this happened, I mean, just a day or two ago or something like that at one of his conferences here.
And I will shut down the Federal Department of Education, and we will move everything back to the states where it belongs and where they can individualize education and do it with the love for their children.
So let's play it again here. We're going to go back to the beginning.
And I will shut down the Federal Department of Education, and we will move everything back to the states where it belongs and where they can individualize education and do it with the love for their children.
Okay, I'm telling you, some people misunderstand Trump because they're not hearing the words that he says. That is called the NEA. And let me kind of move that forward, sorry, so you can hear it. The NEA is the National Education Association. And by the way, this article that I'm just showing you a piece of the article is back in 2021. He hasn't even taken office. Now, this particular video happens a couple days ago. So we're talking 3 years later, 3.5, that we're talking about something that they were terrified of him doing. And he says the federal agencies for education. He's not, now NEA is only, goes after primary all the way to high school education. And because, you know, listen, I was going to be a teacher before I was an audiologist. And I remember spending a lot of time thinking about NEA and what they actually do. Is a very heavy criminal organization. When you understand the sickness of it, they hate our children and they want to inculcate them in the communist kind of motions. And so what he's saying is he doesn't just stop. He could have said NEA. He really could have. But what he said is the federal agencies of education, which will encompass universities. And when you have those crimes, and see, when you have those crimes, guess what? You get no money, buddy. So these big universities and these big educational departments that have been doing their stupid and their sickness, like the drag queen, dances for little kids, a perfect example that we could never imagined in 2021, but he's intimating it now. He's going, you know what? You got to love the kids. You don't love the kids, so that's the other intimation in there too. Isn't that scary to imagine? And then here's what he says, or what they said about him. So a lot of the articles, you're going to see the slant. All these things are slanted. After President Trump's seditious rhetoric prompted insurrectionists to storm the U.S. Capitol. Now, oh, by the way, I'm sorry, it wasn't when he was inaugurated. This is before Biden was becoming inaugurated. And they're talking about the insurrection of the Capitol. This is one day later. How do they know it's insurrectionists storming the U.S. Capitol? And I mean, now they're totally making up stuff. In a last-ditch attempt to stop the Congress from certifying that President-elect Joe Biden won the election, the National Education Association is calling for Trump's immediate removal from office. Huh. Yeah. Do you see that? Okay, let's do another one. We're going to put FBI and DOJ in the middle of this one. DOJ, FBI Donald Trump wants to control them, and his allies have the plan. So some of Donald Trump's allies are assembling proposals to curtail the DOJ's independence and turn the nation's top law enforcement body into a attack dog for conservative causes. Like, wait a second. And when you read this stuff through and it talks about, a dramatic department from their mission statement, which independently identifies independence and impartiality as its core principles, core value principle points. And you're going, wait a second. You call yourself independent and impartial, and you've done everything against Trump in this way? Now, here's what they actually intimate out, and this is before some of the trials had actually started. First, flood the DOJ with stalwart conservatives unlikely to say no to controversial orders from the White House. Wait a second. If you have a controversial order, shouldn't you say no to that? Restructure the department so that they put loyalists in there instead of career bureaucrats. What that is saying is cabal. The FBI, which many Republicans see as biased against them, I wonder why that is the case, would have new constraints on its authority. Maybe that's a good idea. Trump feels that the DOJ has institutionalized problems. It's not just personnel. You need to purge DOJ, but you also need to reform it. This is what they're telling you. And by the way, you have to take out the three-letter agencies. Who started that conversation? JFK, when he was saying in a speech, not 6 months, he's talking to the UN, not 6 months before he's shot down by these three-letter agencies that went after him and the black hat military at the time. What it was is he said, I'm going to break the CIA up into 1,000 pieces. Now, Trump is going after every single one of them. That's pretty cool. How about this one? The real weaponization of the Justice Department. Now, Jack Smith's indictment shows that the abuse of government Republicans have been seeking was there all along. And so you're going. Okay, so in January, which means January 2023, one of the first acts of the new Republican majority was to have a special committee to look at what they were doing. Well, that's not a bad thing. We have a duty to get the agencies and look into how they've been weaponizing them against the very people they're supposed to represent. Wait a second. That's actually a great thing, and you know it. It's undeniable that in recent years, the executive branch of the federal government, Oh, now they put this is working for the administration, has abused its authority and violated the civil liberties of American citizens, often for political purposes. We're not even, that time frame is August of 2023. We haven't even seen what actually would happen in this last Trump trial that was, in New York with Alvin Bragg. That's exactly what they did. See, these idiots want you to believe that their stuff doesn't stink. Let's put it that way. And then here, very, very recently, new evidence reveals the details on the FBI raid. Now, I didn't show you the very first two paragraphs because they're actually so pejorative and silly that they try to set the stage up. But when you get down into the meat of this conversation, Trump's legal team noted that the filing of the special counsel was not in their original and intact boxes. By the way, that means you corrupted your evidence. And in any case in the history of the world, if the evidence is corrupted, it's like you putting thumbprints all over a murder scene. That's what they did. The filings also include an attached exhibit that provides precise details on how the FBI carried out its Mar-a-Lago raid. And it laid out sensitive materials on a coffee table and covered up with a sheet to prevent them from being used or viewed without, though, the authority to be told to do so. They were looking at top secret information that they had no right to see. Do you catch what we're talking about? Now they're overreaching. And by the way, and I've talked to many, 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 many people who are in top secret clearance. They will tell you if you don't have the capability, I don't care if it's your boss above you, if they don't have the clearance to see that, you don't get to see it. You don't get to have little agents walking into the house and rustling through papers. They are not cleared to see in this way. But this is how they do it. So, pull this off the screen here. What I'm trying to share with you is this massive weaponization of the whole systems. And when we're seeing it, it makes you mad, it makes you frustrated, like, why hasn't it happened yet? But Trump already told you why. He told you how it was going to work. And this is an absolute critical component of NESARA. It is not just, and people go, well, yeah, that's not in, yes, it is in NESARA stuff. It absolutely is. And trust me, that's why we need to deal with what we're dealing with. Okay? Now I'm going to do the second part, and you'll get to see more of that information too. Please do me a favor and subscribe. It really helps me out if you subscribe. You can also go to drscottyoung.com and you can download some really cool information as well. Thanks so much.